Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we get started with Botania. Specifically, we obtain our first mystical flowers, learn to use the pure daisy, get sick in real life, and come up with a way too complicated method of duplicating mystical petals. Well, doesn't the magic tower look a little different? It's not that different. I basically added the other two quadrants, one for blood magic, one for witchery. I don't know why, but it just felt like yellow was the right color for witchery. It just feels correct. Red is obviously blood magic. Today, we are gonna get started with Botania. I've already done this very first quest, which is to just get a magic mushroom from the Twilight Forest. And it can be any mushroom, and I only have 3. I thought I had more, but I think I might have used them as infusion stabilizers. But that's fine, they're easy enough to get. A little bit tedious, but that's fine. But we're also soon going to get more items that work in place of these mushrooms. So there are 2 branches to go down. I've already looked down these a little bit, and this right side branch doesn't really go anywhere for me because, well, let's just start, right? So first of all, I'm going to need a Lexica Botania. This is like the book, the Botania book, and I'm also going to need some redstone roots. It mentions it in the quest, but any flower that uses redstone roots can be toggled with a redstone signal. So that's just something to keep in mind for later. And the Lexica Botania is just a book combined with one of these mushrooms. I've already set up a crafting terminal here because I know I'm going to need it. It's just connected to the same kind of magic tower subnet. And I've made space for ones for blood magic and for witchery as well once we get around to those. But let's get started. The Lexica Botania is kind of like the Thaumanomicon of this mod. It goes through all of the mechanics and basically everything that's in the mod. And there is a lot of information. I haven't read through most of this. I don't know what exists in Botania. I'm not really a magic mod enthusiast, as you may have guessed. But I'll eventually get around to reading everything. For now, there are 3 new quests that have opened up. One to make the Bellthorn. This is basically a flower that does damage to mobs nearby. I already have mob repellitors, so it's a little pointless for me. There's also the Dread Thorn. This is a similar flower, but it only kills adult animals, so it's quite nice for a farm, but I don't really need anything from the farm because I have pretty much everything automated from other sources, so also kind of a useless flower for me. These would be really nice in the early game. Starting Botania in LUV is a little bit funny. This one seemed interesting to me, the Solignolia. It stops magnets from picking things up in the vicinity, but it seems like it only works with the ring of magnetization from Botania. So I don't think it works with my item dislocator. So also kind of pointless. And unfortunately, that's it. So that's this whole right branch done for me for now. I'm not really interested in these. Maybe I'll make these just for the sake of it in the future. But for now, let's go down the main path, starting with the Petal Apothecary. This is one of the main crafting stations of the mod, so you're absolutely going to need this. To use the Petal Apothecary, you're going to need some water, some seeds, and a bunch of different flowers and petals depending on what you're trying to make. Some of the flowers can be hard to get, and this quest has a very good suggestion of getting started on bees. So if you have bees nearby, they generate flowers, which can be very, very useful for Botania. I already have bees right there. It's in the neighborhood, so quite easy for me. But now it's time to make our first flower, the Pure Daisy. The Pure Daisy needs 1 mystical white petal or white shimmering mushroom and 3 white flowers. I have a lot of clovers because clovers for some reason don't get turned into white dye, but all the other white flowers do. So clovers just kind of sit in my storage, so I'm going to use them here. I'm also going to set up a quick reservoir here, and I don't have any white shimmering mushrooms, but the Lexica Botania quest lets me pick 1 color of mushroom as a quest reward. So I'm going to pick white. And now to use the Petal Apothecary, you first need a bucket of water. Fill it up. I'm going to have to turn off my magnet. And now you throw in the items from the recipe, which in my case are 1 white shimmering mushroom and 3 white flowers. So 1 of these, 3 of these. But now you can see the recipe and it has this little icon on the right that says plus seeds. And what this means is this is a valid recipe to craft the Pure Daisy. And to actually trigger the craft, you just need to throw in some seeds. I already know I'm going to need multiple of these, so I'm just going to make as many as I can, which is 4 in total. And now let's set these up. So I've built a little garden space here. It's mostly snow, but I'm going to replace that right now. And a little shitty little staircase here. I haven't fully thought of what this design is going to look like, so I just have this makeshift piece of shit right now. But I'm gonna try and integrate it with the design to make it look a little nicer at some point. But now let's swap out the snow and plant some pure daisies. Now the pure daisy basically converts blocks around it into a different type of block. So it does need some space around it. So just leave a little space in between, something like this. And now we can make living rock and living wood. Living rock is made using stone next to a pure daisy, and living wood is made using wood. I imagine I'm going to need a lot of both of these things, so coming up with some way to automate this would be quite nice. But for now, all that needs to happen is that I place these around. Now, as you can see from the particle effects, it is slowly going to convert these. It's going to take some time. And once it's done, it starts getting converted like this. It takes about a minute, so it is somewhat slow. And now, mana. We're going to need a few things. The mana spreader, which is basically a combustion engine, a wand of the forest, which is a wrench, and a diluted mana pool, which is a battery buffer. Yes, Botania is a tech mod. Well, calling the mana spreader a combustion engine is not really right. It's more like a cable, almost. Anyway, to make this, we're going to need some more mushrooms, a gold ring, and living wood slabs. That's pretty easy. Wand of the forest needs living wood twigs and some mushrooms. The twigs are just from sawing planks. It is a little annoying that it needs a program circuit, but it makes sense. And the diluted mana pool needs living rock plates and living rock slabs. Overall, pretty straightforward. Actually, before I get around to making those things, a quick little thing you can do to make the pure daisy stuff a little easier to work with is it only affects the blocks that are on its level, so it doesn't change these stones. So what you can do is you can place stones here, and you can place wood here, and then you can use a diamond wand to place a big bunch at a time. And it's extra satisfying when you do this, because all of these get converted at the same time. Alright, I did have to run into the Twilight Forest and get a couple more mushrooms, like some low voltage aged chump, but it is what it is. And now the goal is to make a couple of different things. So first of all, some mana powder. This is made in a mana pool with some gunpowder, redstone, or glowstone dust. Well, there's also more options, sugar, thaumium, there's a billion options. But it seems like the cheapest one in terms of mana cost is either draconium or thaumium dust. Or Vintium dust. I will probably do Thaumium dust. It does use a bit of mana, like I just said, and I haven't talked about how we generate mana yet. To do this, we're going to need either, well, I'm going to make both, but a nightshade and a daybloom. A daybloom is made in the petal apothecary with a bunch of mushrooms and some other stuff, and a nightshade, same thing. I may have to go searching in the Twilight Forest some more for more mushrooms because it does need specific colors. But after that, with the mana spreader and diluted mana pool, I'll show you how to collect and store mana. Actually, instead of running around in the Twilight Forest, I think Thaumcraft can help me out. There's a whole tab for Botania research, and I'm going to go through as much of it as I can. And if I find another way to make petals or mushrooms, I'll let you know. I just went ahead and did all of the research, so I've done 16 out of 16? But you really don't need to at this point in Botania. For right now, the only things that I really need are flower duplication, which once I have a flower, I can duplicate it. Floral cultivation, once I have a flower, I can change what color it is. And the base research itself of magical flowers. This lets me convert mushrooms into flowers. And I don't know if this is really needed, but there's also magic mushrooms, which lets me convert flowers back into mushrooms. With one mushroom, I can make the entire suite of colored flowers. I can use, for example, this blue mushroom to make a blue flower, and then I can duplicate the flower a bunch of times, and then I can make one of each of the different colors of flower. So nice. Definitely do that. It's worth doing if you have Thaumcraft set up, and you don't have to go scrounging in the Twilight Forest looking for mushrooms. Oh shit. You can't do the duplication with AE2. That is a pain because of fake essentia and stuff. I might just have to... Oh god, what do I do? I might just have to make a new kind of isolated Thaumcraft setup so I can duplicate these flowers easily. That is really annoying. Wow, that sucks. Alright, I'm back. I have my full set of flowers, and I have a cold. As you can probably tell from the change in my voice from the last, 10 seconds ago. It's been a few days since I played, because I got sick and I wasn't able to record. But yeah, that's just what Thaumcraft does to you. I have this isolated setup now, and I can duplicate my flowers. But there's a better way to duplicate these flowers, actually. And I did know about this, but for some reason I didn't think about it. You can just bone meal them. What I mean by that is you can chuck these flowers in an extractor that will give you 2 mystical white petals for 1 flower. And now with these mystical white petals, you can plant them in the ground, and they'll grow by themselves, but you can also bone meal them. And this gets you tall mystical white flowers. Now be careful with these because you do need to cut these with shears. And now these tall mystical white flowers can be extracted again for 4 mystical white petals. So once you have 1 tall mystical white flower, every iteration of this will quadruple the number of tall mystical white flowers you have. And of course you can do that for any flower color. So that's another thing that you could automate. It needs a little bit of manual automation, like interacting with the world. I don't think I've done that anywhere in the base, which is a little surprising. You know, I have a really bad habit of saying, oh, I'll get around to it later. So I've decided, no, I'm gonna automate petals. So I've kind of made a setup here that sort of does that. It's really loud. But what I have here is a storage bus set for all of the tall mystical flowers with a sticky card, so they can only go into this extractor. That turns it into petals. The petals go into this drawer controller, and it's put into the drawer, of course. And to make more tall mystical flowers, I have this kind of weird setup. I don't know if I really like it. I'm sure there's a way to make it more compact, and I'm sure there's a way to make it so that it's not locked to a single color. But this is going to help me, at least for now, because I can manually change things and whatever. Just micromanage it a little bit without having to plant things and bone meal it by hand constantly. And basically what I have here is I've made some dynamism tablets. These are Thaumic Tinkerer blocks that allow me to left click and right click into the world automatically, with or without an item. So this dynamism tablet is set to use white mystical petals with right click using redstone control. This one in the back uses bone meal and right clicks. And this one over here uses thaumium shears and left clicks. I'm only using thaumium shears because they have a much simpler crafting recipe than regular shears. Also, I think they have higher durability. These export buses here are just transporting mystical white petals or bone meal or more shears, because the shear durability does go down. And then up here I have a vacuum hopper that sucks up the tall mystical white flower once the shears breaks the flower. And an import bus. And the import bus takes it, of course, back into the only allowed storage, which is the extractor. Over here, the redstone logic is I have a timer here set for 4.8 seconds. That goes to a repeater with a delay of 32 ticks, which leads to another repeater with another delay of 32 ticks. So the timer goes off, it's touching this dynamism tablet, so that triggers the petal to be planted. Then there's a slight delay so that the petal is actually planted, and then the bone meal comes in. And then there's another delay, and the thaumium shears cuts the flower. This has only been running for a few minutes, and I already have a stack of mystical white petals. And yeah, there's a lot of different colors, and I don't really want to make 16 of these. That seems a bit... I don't know, it's going to take up a lot of space and probably get quite laggy. I could maybe even turn this into a subnet and make it on-demand crafting or something. I don't know, something like that. Now that I am going to do later, because no delays. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm on the right track here, I think. It's a work in progress. I'm gonna build kind of a breeding area for petals, because this is going to take a bit more space. Sorry for being so wishy-washy about it, but here's the full petal duplication system. There are 2 subnets involved. One of them is not really a subnet. This one over here, I only use because it's just hard to get as many channels as I need. So I decided to just use a controller, and then I have a storage bus on an interface, and I also have an interface on a storage bus. And there's no filtering, there's no import only, export only, none of that. So it's basically just an extension of the mainnet. And this subnet over here handles the actual duplication process. Let's talk about this smaller subnet first, I guess. The cool colors, the green and the blue, are part of the smaller subnet. And the way that this subnet works is I have a storage bus on the dynamism tablet, the one that holds the petal. This is the only storage bus on the subnet, and it's the only place where petals can go. To pull petals into the subnet, I have a bunch of import buses. There are in total 16 import buses, 8 on the green cable and 8 on the blue cable. And they are all supposed to have redstone cards in them, which I'm now realizing I forgot to do, but each one of these needs a redstone card set to active with signal. Every single import bus here is only going to be on when its corresponding signal is on. And I will come back to what these signals are after I put in the rest of these cards. Now that that's done, the orange and red lines here are both part of the same subnet. And they're part of the mainnet extension. So I'm just going to call it the mainnet, but technically it's a subnet over here. So on the mainnet here, I have a bunch of interfaces, each one supplying one color and one stack of petals. So there's 16 colors in total, of course, so there are 16 interfaces and 16 import buses on the other side. And along with these interfaces, I have level emitters. So these level emitters are set to the same color petal as the interface, so these are corresponding. And this turns on the import bus only when there are less than 256 magenta petals in this instance. And that's true for all 16 colors here. So what happens is the import bus only turns on when there are less than 256 petals in our mainnet. And that's true for each color. And of course, there's only one place to store these petals, so the import bus is not going to do anything while this dynamism tablet already has petals in it. What's going to happen is we're going to keep duplicating these petals. It's going to go up as a tall mystical flower, get extracted, turn into petals, and put into storage. The green petal import bus, wherever it is, will keep importing green petals until we have 256 green petals, and then it will stop. The remaining petals will be processed, so this could be quite a few petals. But after the final green petal is done, the next color goes in. And this will run basically until every single one of these petal colors is at 256. I made some small changes to the redstone design here, so it's actually a lot more compact. Now in the middle, I have the petal, and that's just directly connected to the timer. The timings are the same, 4.8 seconds. Here on the right, I have a repeater set to 16 ticks. This goes into the bone meal. And here on the left, I have the shears with a repeater of 32 ticks. And of course, I have export buses here for bone meal and for more thaumium shears. And here I have a vacuum hopper. Before I had an import bus, but it doesn't need to be an import bus. It can just be an interface. And on the vacuum hopper, you need to set the top side to be the output. So this pushes items into the interface, so the petals go into storage. More complicated than I expected this to be honest, mostly because there are 16 colors, so it's just bulky, but it works. I do have a suggestion for you, dear employee. If you're not averse to using bees, there's a bee that does this. It's called the Botanic bee, and basically this has a 1% chance of giving you each of the different petals. So that is a far easier way to get an infinite number of petals, but this was fun. I like doing this. This was interesting. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will continue with Botania and learn about mana generation and storage, and see what we can do with this mystical substance. Perhaps it tastes like bubblegum. Disclaimer, HamCorp is not responsible for any adverse effects that arise from tasting mana. See you next time.